up? Welcome on in, everybody. It is that time of the week. It's the Sooners on SI podcast here after a big extravaganza on Monday. We have so much OU football to dive into and not enough time, so let's just get after it. We're joined by three-fourths of the usual crew. We got our man, John Hoover, manning the ship back up in Broken Arrow. How was Media Day for you, considering it was a lot of, hey, John, I'm sending this video. Hey, John, I'm sending this video. Hey, John, we talked to 70 people. Here you go. Post all these.
It was good, man. My YouTube channel did some good work on Monday, and I even got reprimanded by one of the admins on the YouTube groups saying, please, next time this happens, please don't post 40 videos. I was like, it was only 36. It was only come on, it's 36.
It's just 36.
They just want like a link to my YouTube channel, and I'm like, you got it. You got it.
Have at that link, John Hoover Media. If you missed any of the extravaganza on Monday, which we'll break down here. Also had Carson Field on hand. He was with us in Norman. Carson, how did you... it's a weird thing. Spring ball, end of the month. Media Day was Monday. I'm like ready to go, and we got to sit and wait through spring break.
Yeah, that's a little bit different, but it was cool to be out there, meet some of the new faces. This was my first go around at Spring Media Day, so I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And like you said, that 2-week gap, don't worry. We have, like who said, 36 different videos that we're going to be writing about over the next couple of weeks. So we've got you covered. No lulling content. It's going to be fun though. It's going to be fall ball before we know it.
It will be for sure. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, you're going, that other box, same amount of hair as usual. It's just on top of the head instead of in the beard. No Ryan Aber today. So our designated survivor gets to leave the bunker. Brady Trantham, welcome to the pod. How are you, my friend?
It's very nice to get out of the bunker and to see the light. So it's very nice. I'm enjoying myself. But yeah, shout out to Ryan Aber, and hopefully I do a good enough job.
Unfortunately, much like with a lot of Oklahomans and their tornado shelters, they have to go in there and be like, how many spiders took over this? That we did not do a good job of spraying the bunker, so I just please don't sue us, Brady, for those spider bites. If they're not radioactive, I don't know what else to tell you.
I did plenty of that yesterday evening. We had some tornado sirens go off around, I live around Mustang, and there was a bunch of peeking my head down there and going like, because I hate spiders. I was like, do we need to vacuum this first? I know there's a tornado on the, fortunately there was nothing bad, but it's like, priorities. Take care of the spiders first.
Good news for you. I'm sure that Jessica would be like, I'll get the spiders out of there. For me, I'd just be like, burn the thing down.
She did, and she carried me down there. It was perfect. She's great.
Do we have any spider experts out in the audience today that could explain to me how it's like middle of March and there was a spider in my garage that was 3 inches wide. How? Where? I thought they died every year. I thought they came out really small and then grew as they eat. What is that thing doing living in my garage? That's where our drums are. Come on,
John. You got to move. You got to move.
Oh yeah. Well, I used like half a bottle of Windex on it. It was the closest thing.
I'm gonna clean you to death.
Is that my big fat Greek wedding that we use Windex for everything? Anyway, okay. Moving on to other things. We're not going to go chronologically through Media Day because I want to start with Brent Venables and Jim Nagy. Then we'll get to the assistants and all the players. But it was an extravaganza. If there was a new face in the program outside of maybe some of the front office people, whether it be Molly, the new recruiting coordinator, who certainly has had herself a week or two as the Future Freaks weekend popped off. We'll get to that all here in a little bit. But let's start with Brent Venables and Jim Nagy and work our way back. For Brent Venables, it was, if you've watched enough Brent Venables spring pressers, he kind of treats the opening one of spring as like a state of the program. Let me catch you up on everything that I think has happened and is important from the time that we last spoke up until now, and ran through a lot of stats, returning production, all that stuff. But I think the biggest thing that came from the Brent Venables press conference, John, is he has kind of laid out what he believes the biggest challenge for this Oklahoma team will be, which is last year, and we talked about it, the drop-off or lack of drop-off at a lot of positions from the guys that were the named starters to the twos. That was a huge strength, especially the defense. Being able to build some depth along the offensive line and not get so many guys injured, that was something that they were striving toward, and he was just pretty frank. They lost a lot of their frontline guys defensively, or the number two guys technically defensively, and the big challenge for this team is going to be raise the floor or raise the average to be as close to the top as possible. Because he spoke for so long, did not get a chance to get a ton of questions in. But I do wonder, when you look at John having no post-spring transfer portal window, I know that every coach across the country is gonna say we do everything the same every day, yada yada yada. But human nature is, hey, if John's getting more reps than me this spring, I might check out the last 2 weeks and start wondering, am I going to be portal hopping, stuff like that. Right now, with every program across the country, the only way through is forward in kind of some ways. How big do you think that's going to be for Oklahoma if that's kind of the stated goal, is to try to bring that up, where knowing that they can coach their butts off all spring long, and outside of some like weird people unenrolling, which I'm sure will happen across the country. But for the most part, you're not going to have your roster get pillaged, and you can really coach those 2s and 3s and try to really raise the talent level of the entire team.
Yeah, and improve the culture of your program. I think it's going to be huge for Oklahoma. It's going to be huge for a lot of programs around the country. A lot of programs who don't just cycle and process 4-star and 5-star recruits like they're crackers in the vending machine. These are guys who have a future in college football. These are a lot of guys, a lot of prospects who have a bright future in college football. And you want to be able to get your kind of talons into them a little bit. Sink your sink your teeth into them. Get your resources and allow them, your new recruiting coordinator, your GM who's been on the job for a year. You want to be able to expose these guys to all aspects of your program. And I think, correct me if I'm not wrong, guys, I think the biggest thing for Venables, where he's at in his coaching career, where he's at with the program right now, is going to be something that he's talked about a lot, and that is, how do we handle success? Okay, so he's coming off a 10-win season, 10-3, hosting a college football playoff game. Currently has the class that they're working on is by far currently ranked number 1 in the country, recruiting class 2027. He's kind of feeling himself a little bit, I think. And I'm not saying in a cocky way. He's just kind of like experiencing some success stacked on top of success, which is something that we've not seen from Brent. So if this season, and the momentum continues in that direction, he certainly has, every right to be proud of that and to build on that and to exploit that with recruiting and with transfer portal guys. So that's something, though, that I want to see how he does as a head coach. How does he handle his own success?
And I thought, Carson, that was another kind of, I don't know if subplot might be putting it too strong a way to label that. But last year, this time, Brent Venables had a pretty good answer, I thought, when he was asked about the pressure of being on the hot seat. And he's like, listen, man, my background, where I come from, nothing's given. I got to work my butt off every day. But he was certainly happier, and he was much more relaxed when just asked, whether it be a relationship with Jim Nagy, just because you've had a year to build it, you've been through a signing day, now a portal cycle. Even Brent Venables was able to smile and be like, yeah, man, things feel a lot better right now coming off a 10-win season and be able to build off. It's not the end of the season you wanted, but at least you're not staring down 6-7 and going, okay, now we're in that conversation of going from good to great, as opposed to everyone wondering if I'm even fit to be the head coach at this place.
Yeah, I thought it was a good balance more than anything. I know going back to August when we had that fall media day press conference, we all agreed, okay, Brent Venables is on edge. Like, there is a lot at stake. Like, they have to achieve this year for him to be back. And they did that. But also, I liked that there was this sense of still this professionalism, yeah, we had a good season last year, but we need to be better than that from Brent Venables' perspective, knowing the history of this program, knowing that getting to the playoff isn't the end goal. It's making a run and eventually getting to the spot of winning the national championship. I felt like that fire was still there, shown by his, 20-minute introductory statement before fielding questions. It really was detailed in how a lot of the things have gone in the offseason. I thought it was just a really good gauge of where the program's at heading into spring ball.
And it seems that another thing, too, if we're going number 1, it's just raise the level from the 2s to the 1s, all that stuff. It seems like Brady, the second thing that Brent Venables has really honed in on, and whether you go all the way back to his interview on the Oklahoma Breakdown podcast on the weekend, or kind of his joke of 90% of our rushing production's coming back. That's not a lot of rushing yards, but it is 90% of it. It feels like Brent Venables, you want to get better at everything. Duh, we get that. But that has been a major focus. It seems like the tone has been set, that this is going to be the big thing for this Oklahoma offense. And you even got to talk to Dylan McCullough and the new running back coach, and Jason Witten, your new tight end coach, with a revamped tight end group to help that offensive line block. It seems like that's going to be something that we're going to be tracking a lot throughout the spring is how do you feel that aspect of your offense is coming along?
Absolutely. And it mainly kind of stems from before we even get to the running backs or even get to Dylan McCullough. The running game seems to be on paper the easiest thing for this Oklahoma offense to correct. And it really has nothing to do, like I said, with the running backs or the new running backs coach. It's the fact that the offensive line stands to be in a much better position going into this year than it has been, at least in the previous 2 seasons. So they're going to go in with some momentum and some confidence that they're once, freshman offensive line, Michael Fasusi, Eddie Pierre-Louis, and Ryan Foje, well, now they're experienced sophomores. You're excited about Jake Michaela possibly coming back from that infection that ended the final 2 games of his season last year. You're excited about Amarian Harris, the plug-and-play right tackle. So the offensive line stands to be in a much better position, which, of course, on paper, makes it easier for Xavier Robinson or a Torrey Blaylock or whomever it might be to run through those holes that may not have been there last year. And if the running game improves, it makes life easier for John Mateer, because that's the entire crux of this offseason is, can John Mateer make improvements to his game? Well, in order to do that, like, he has to do X, Y, and Z, but you can make it a lot easier if his skill position guys, and namely a running game to complement this defensive first program, if that makes strides. I mean, Brent talked about it in that podcast. 3.5 yards a carry is pathetic. And if you could just improve that to 4.5, that would make a world of difference. And, enter Dylan McCullough, the new running backs coach, who has this track record of just developing dudes you've never heard of into NFL draft picks, who's taking guys that everyone's heard of coming out of high school. I mean, he knows basically all these running backs in this room right now at the University of Oklahoma, because he recruited Xavier Robinson, he recruited Torrey Blaylock, he recruited Jonathan Hatton when he was at Notre Dame. So all these guys are familiar with him. They respect the track record, and they're all excited about what he brings to the table in terms of developing running backs. And if that happens, like, that's an accidental marriage. Like, that is, because, I mean, just think of it from the standpoint, I think if the Kansas City Chiefs weren't looking for a new running backs coach, OU would be going into the season with DeMarco Murray, which would be fine in terms of everyone seems to like him. But Dylan McCullough brings this track record that everyone is excited about. And I think all this can just accidentally maybe move OU back into a position to return their ground game to probably where it belongs.
It's something that, and we'll get into this here in a little bit when we start talking about some of the players specifically, but you talked to Jonathan Hatton Jr., who we knew that his relationship with DeMarco Murray was a big thing. He loved Oklahoma, loved DeMarco Murray, and I feel bad for Jonathan Hatton Jr. because I think he probably had to say this version of the line about 20 times across 30 minutes of, I'm really disappointed that I'm not being coached by DeMarco. I get it. I'm happy for him. It's a family decision. But also, he's like, he didn't say these exact words, but you kind of got the feel like, well, if I couldn't be coached by DeMarco Murray, I'm pretty happy for Dylan McCullough to come in, because it's someone that he seemed to have a pretty good relationship with as well. And I know that, pointing out the problem and identifying as opposed to fixing it are two different things, but you listen to some of the other stuff that Brent talked about, Carson, which is just simply, hey, we were efficient as it gets. Once we got to the red zone, we didn't get there enough. We actually were terrible at getting to the red zone. Well, it's kind of like Brady was just talking about. If you're not super reliant or only reliant on everything has to be on John Mateer, we had talked about that all last year, that whether he was hurt, healthy, whatever, it felt like 100% of all the offenses, everything outside of a 6-quarter stretch from Ole Miss to Tennessee until Xavier Robinson hurt his knee against Alabama. It was the Mateer show, for better or for worse. And you hope a healthy Mateer brings a lot of improvements, but every quarterback in the country wants a huge run game to support them. And that's going to be a huge priority, as we've seen by all the portal moves and everything. The emphasis has been put on that.
You just look across the board at the offense, and holistically, it just appears to be in such a better position than it was last year. Adding guys on the outside like Trell Harris and Parker Livingston. Obviously, adding Amarian Harris, Caleb Nitta, a bunch of different guys on the offensive line that should help the running game, and then getting guys like the 2 freshman running backs, getting some depth pieces like Lloyd Avant, Ben McCreary. I mean, let's just play devil's advocate and say all of the John Mateer haters, the Texas fans, let's say they're correct, and maybe that end of season Mateer really is his final version. Even so, this team is set up so much better if that was to be the case. I don't think any of the 4 of us believe that is what John Mateer can be, just evidenced by how he played against good defenses in Auburn and Michigan before his injury. So, I mean, you just look at the line, you look at the run game, he should be so much better supported this year. And they're going to need that just looking at the schedule with how many playoff teams they play against this year, teams that just missed the playoff, like Texas. It's not an easy schedule, so they need all the help they can get, even if Mateer is really good. But I think they did a lot in the offseason to make sure that is the case.
And really, to real quick, Ryan, to further that point, it's always important to remind people, I think, because this is the University of Oklahoma where exceptional quarterback play is the standard. This isn't Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma. John Mateer doesn't need to be a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback for OU to even be better than they were last year. This is a defensive led program. They're just wanting John Mateer to be good. And a part of that is just going to be the offensive line being better. And we all think that it can be. The running game to be better. And we all think that it can be. The receivers are fairly solid, but Isaiah Satania coming back, all that kind of points to John Mateer. If the final 2 games of his season are what his ceiling is, then so be it. OU won one of those games. And even with his pick 6, I mean, you could argue that if the special teams mishaps didn't happen, OU still wins that game or is in much better position to win that game, even with that end of first half collapse. I mean, the John Mateer pick 6 was just kind of the cherry on top to those final few minutes.
Yeah, we'll have to, if raising the floor of the team was, Brett Venables's like main line, like the big theme of his, for Jim Nagy, every time he's spoken publicly this spring, it's kind of been about surrounding talent around John Mateer. For me personally, it's going to be about getting T.I. to perform at the fourth quarter break of the next playoff game as opposed to 50 Cent. But John, it dominated a lot of the questions to Jim Nagy in general. There have been a couple, he's given some interviews, he talked with Dari Nokla and stuff like that about putting that talent around John Mateer. And I think that when the portal opened up and it was very, very clear immediately exactly how they wanted to attack, and they went, 10 for 11 on the opening weekend. You look at it, new wide receivers, new offensive linemen to kind of backfill some of that depth that was lost, so they kept the frontline guys, a new tight end room. Jim Nagy seemed pretty excited to step on in and kind of talk about some of those additions, because I think that he believes, and it certainly looks like the case on the outside looking in, that they spent that year really, really well preparing, and it looked like the front office was a well-oiled machine in tandem with Oklahoma, which should give Jason Witten a much different room to come in and try to improve than maybe the one that was left for him.
Yeah, you mentioned the tight end room. That's the direction I was going to go. Those guys just look so much more capable, so much more equipped to be an SEC tight end than what Oklahoma's had the last 2, 3, 4 years. Brady talked about the running backs being better, the running game being better, the offensive line being better. And as a product of that, Mateer's going to be better. The wide receivers look, I should say, improved. You get Satania back, and you add to that. You add some explosive. You add some experience and those qualities to a receiver room that should be better. But the tight end room should be phenomenally better. That's the position that, to me, I really want to get down and look at and compare what those guys did last year, what they were asked to do last year, and what they're going to ask these 3 guys to do this year. Boy, that's something that if it pans out like it looks like it's going to, like I'm not sitting here saying they're all pros or they're all SEC or they're definitely better. I want to see it for my own eyes before I believe it, but I'm just saying the evidence that we've seen so far, it looks like those guys are going to be way better. Now I want to see how OU's offensive line meshes with those guys, how the running game meshes with those guys. And I want to see what Arbuckle does with those guys as well. Ben Arbuckle's got he's got some pieces in place. He's got some pieces now on the board. I want to see how his chess game really evolves.
In the most simplistic way of looking at it, we talked to 5 guys, whether it be the 2 freshmen, Jack Dorselaire, Hayden Hansen, and Rocky Beers, and Carson Brady. You know this. There was, not this past offseason, but 2 years ago with OU basketball, when we walked into Media Day and walked out of Media Day. It seems so simplistic, but I was like, that looks like a basketball team, actually. There's some tall guys. There's some guys that look like a basketball team. When Hayden Hansen walked into the room and when Jack Dorselaire walked by, I was like, oh, those guys are tight ends. And it's the first time in a while that I've been like, that's the tight end. That's the tight end room. I don't have to check their nameplate. It's just like, oh, yeah, he's really, really tall and broad-shouldered, but also lean. I was like, that's Hayden Hansen probably, without even like having to see his face or anything like that. And I know that talking to a bunch of Brady, you have the story right now up on the website, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com, about Jack Van Dorselaer and how we'll get to the Jason Witten of it all, but just simply put, you have some guys, and Hayden Hansen I think would probably fit into this as well, that feel like they were pigeonholed at their last stop into you block. That's all you do. And while Oklahoma wants to do that to improve that running game, we've seen coming from Washington State that Ben Arbuckle was like, hey, we might not throw 100 balls to the tight ends, but we can create some mismatches in the red zone. We can use these guys. And I just don't know if we got to see all of Arbuckle's creativity. Part of that last year was being year one in the system, but Brady, he didn't have different guys to do different stuff with once you got past like Jaron Kanik at the tight end spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, just from a body standpoint, I mean, Jim Nagy talked about it during his press conference on Monday, how they flipped the room. Now, it's talking season. I mean, for them, it's going to be spring ball. They're going to find out a lot of things that they were either correct on, or this guy needs to make a little bit more of a leap for us to actually sit there and puff our chest out and say, yeah, all three of them are great. Now, the other thing about their skill sets, I mean, just based on physicality, I mean, it seems like Hayden Hansen's going to be your bruising tight end, the guy who's going to open up lanes for your running backs, which is another thing you really struggled in. I mean, when people think of tight ends nowadays, they tend to think of the pass catching aspect, and understandably so, especially from OU with Mark Andrews, Grant Calcaterra, and how great that their tight end play was during the Lincoln Riley era. That makes a lot of sense. Hayden Hansen appears to be the guy that's going to be your bruiser, your run blocking guy. Rocky Beers is the dude who's going to go stretch the field for you, be that dynamic pass catcher. And Jack Van Dorselaer, like by his own admission and by what Ben Arbuckle kind of has envisioned for him, is to be a bridge between the two of them, because in his opinion, he felt he was used like a Hayden Hansen at the University of Tennessee during his freshman season last year. Played in all 13 games, was mainly used in the run blocking schemes. Now, OU fans will remember that he had a very key fourth down drop in that game against in Knoxville. But if you watch the play, I mean, that play was blown up by Marvin Jones Jr. off the edge, bumping into Jack Van Dorselaer. It was a pure timing route, and by the time he had turned around to look for the ball, being delayed on his route, the ball hit him right in the helmet. So it was just an unfortunate play for him. But it seems like, yeah, this is a match made in heaven, not just from the standpoint of Jack Van Dorselaer being from South Lake Carroll, so he's not too far from home, being from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He played at Tennessee, and he got a phone call from a Tennessee legend in Jason Witten to go play at the University of Oklahoma, which is ironic. But also him kind of meshing with John Mateer, him meshing with Ben Arbuckle, and him finally understanding and hearing that, no, we see you as a guy that can do it all. You can run block, you can pass block, you can go out there and catch balls downfield. That was a good thing for him to hear. And that's exactly what OU fans want to hear, is they want to have a tight end room where every single guy that touches the field, they're out there for a purpose, and everybody is confident that they can execute that purpose.
I mean, your position coach caught 1,200 passes in the NFL. No pressure on those guys.
Yeah.
Right? Just do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And just him, again, being from Dallas-Fort Worth, it was like he was destined to play for Jason Witten if he ever did coach in college. And so it's a match made in heaven.
I tried to talk to talking to Ryder X. I was hoping to do a little informal tally of how many OU tight ends have a youth-sized Jason Witten jersey somewhere in their closet at their parents' house, because I imagine that Jack, probably one of those guys, a candidate. Ryder was just like, yeah, man, I grew up a massive Cowboys fan, and Jason Witten, and I was like, are you trying to, do you have to play it cool when you're there? And he's like, he's great. It's good. And I was like, yeah, okay. Play. I got a camera in your face. I get it.
Coach, can I have your autograph when we're done with the film session?
Ryan, you talked to Rocky Beers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't have a chance to talk to Rocky or Hayden Hansen. Those two tight ends, they committed to OU out of the portal, a week and a half or two before Jason Witten was reportedly hired by OU. And then a few weeks later is when OU made the official announcement. Did you happen to ask Rocky, like, hey, did you have an inkling that OU was going to have a new tight ends coach at all? Because I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he basically said they did not tell me who it was going to be. They just said that we promise we're bringing in someone that is going to be really, really key to helping your career. And I also think for Rocky, his recruitment was probably a little bit different than even some of the other guys when you consider Reagan Beers, his sister. She was joining him on the visit. Part of his visit was going to one of her games, and for him, it's like, hey, we get the family back together. But yeah, you could tell that those guys were really, really stoked. And to kind of close the book on the Nagy portion, Carson, regardless if the tight end room gets better or not, I thought that Jim Nagy, you could kind of see, first off, he's just always great and always looks like he's in a great mood when he's talking to us, which can't be the easiest thing in the world. So thank you, Jim, for being fantastic. But you could kind of see like the twinkle in his eye when he was asked about the offensive line, and just if they had made no additions by simply returning all those starts from Foje and Fasusi and Pierre-Louis and Ozida and Jake Michael, they were going to be stoked. You add Harris, like has been mentioned. You add some like backfill guys and Caleb Nita and Peyton Joseph who replace some of that depth. And just talking to, not Joseph, he had a class conflict, but talking to Nita and a guy that's like, yeah, we went and played at Death Valley, and that's when I knew I can hang with these kind of guys and things like that. Regardless of how that goes, it should just by nature be a way more physical offensive line as you get a bunch of guys in their second year of playing, meaningful snaps, and really, really young guys.
Yeah, you look at the depth that they're adding, getting an SEC starter like Imarion Harris, developing guys like Eddie Pierre-Louis, Michael Fasusi, and Ryan Foje. They're one more year experienced at this point. I mean, you've got to like the foundation that's being built for both this year and years ahead. Obviously, goes without saying they have some impressive commits in the 2027 class. So just you look at the state of where this offensive line has been the last 2 years and where it should be this year, the next couple of years. It's really impressive, and just one of the many wins that Sooner fans have seen from Jim Nagy. But what I really like about Jim Nagy is he doesn't seem content with success that they've had. This offseason, passed off his first offseason there. Funny enough, he actually corrected me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I misheard him. I thought he said we've had a lot of fun winning the offseason. He actually said win into the offseason. Pretty much corrected me very politely, said, no, I didn't say that. The only winning happens on the field. So as much as he likes the recruiting wins, the portal wins they've gotten, they're not content until they're actively competing, winning playoff games, winning national titles, which I think that's something that Sooner fans have to love. Just that he's not content with having the number one recruiting class, a great portal class, getting a really good offensive line. There's more to be done, and that should really impress OU Nation.
We will get to the Future Freaks weekend, which included a lot of winning, here in a second. First, let's hit around with some of the assistant coaches. We got to talk to Dylan McCullough, Jason Witten, and Lamar Morgan. Let's start with Lamar Morgan, Carson. Someone that I found his story just fascinating. A guy that basically, from the Texas area, so for a lot of it, it's getting back closer to home and working with someone like Brent Venables, but a big portion of his career has been spent, and he talked about this, that his two middle kids, the twins, were born way premature. They were born at a little over a pound and spent a good amount of time in the hospital, kind of getting back up and doing a lot of therapy things, and that a lot of the moves in his career to this point have been, how can we get closer to a good children's hospital or things like that, which is just sometimes we get so caught up in the business of college football and everything that you forget to stop in and be like, these are very human people that are doing their own. He talked about, I took the Vanderbilt job and wanted to do that stop purely because it's a great, children's medical center and care like that. But a guy that was talking about, he was reaching out, he's trying to find anyone he knew that he thought knew Brent Venables that could maybe whisper in his ear that I'm super interested in this job. Please pick up the phone. I'm happy to answer it. And kind of cool to see for him. It feels like finally he can maybe put down some roots in a way that his predecessor, Jay Valai, finally did. That was his longest stint in college football, to stick at Oklahoma for the stint that he had.
Yeah, it was really intriguing talking to Lamar Morgan, both about some of that personal stuff that you mentioned and why he's excited to be on this staff professionally. He actually said that Brent Venables first called his wife and offered him the job to her, essentially, which is so unique and really does stress what he likes about this OU staff, the team that he has joined. that they're so personal. They do prioritize relationships. He also shouted out Miguel Chavis, Todd Bates, some of the other assistants, and just really emphasized the relationships they've been able to build. But this sounds like both a dream job from a professional and a personal standpoint, that he is close to home being a Texas native, but he's also joining a defensive first program like Oklahoma under Brent Venables, one that has obviously had great past success, has really surged lately with the playoff run last year. So it really seems like OU checks boxes in not only the, oh, I'm close to home, this is a good move for me personally, but from the professional aspect. And it just seems like the success that he has had at Vanderbilt, Michigan, some of these other programs, seems like he does bring a lot of good experience working with what should be a really good cornerback room in 2026.
He'll have, too, the luxury of stepping in and having Cortland Guillory, Eli Bowen, Jacoby Johnson. That's Newcomb, a bunch of those guys that I think it should be a pretty smooth transition for him as he gets up to speed in year one in Brent Venables' defense. Another guy that has a lot of existing pieces to work with, Dylan McCullough coming in. Brady was hanging out with Dylan. You talked about it earlier that he had recruited, the Xavier Robinsons, the Tory Black's of the world. But what struck me about Dylan McCullough is as much as we've been focused on the, hey, he got close with Brent Venables when his sons were being recruited, all that stuff, Brady. Dylan McCullough seems to be a very, very, very confident coach, which I dug, and he knows exactly what he wants, and he knows exactly how he intends on improving this Oklahoma running back room.
Yeah, I mean, a quiet confidence with Dylan McCullough, not very very calm, quiet voice, but when he talks, it's exactly that man is confident in what he's saying, and that no doubt is already known in that running back room. Again, how familiar most of these running backs at OU are already with Dylan McCullough before he even stepped foot as the running backs coach on campus at OU, and close enough to Xavier Robinson, by the way, that when Dylan McCullough was coaching with your Las Vegas Raiders, he's still texting Xavier Robinson up and telling him congratulations on the previous game here and there. They had a close relationship. So this is a rather seamless transition from one running back coach that a lot of these running backs probably loved and came to OU because they wanted to play for DeMarco Murray to a new one. So a very good accident for OU to fall into Dylan McCullough, but with what he wants to do, the interesting thing is, and how all these things work, it was a scrum. I went to him first. There was about 5 or 6 people around me. We asked him all of our questions. And then I went on to try to send John 1,000 videos. When I came back, he was just sitting there by himself. And so I went up to him and basically said, how do you really think that you can fix this running back situation? Because last year, OU was only down to 2 running backs that were quote unquote healthy. I mean, Xavier Robinson had a cast on his knee the size of a grapefruit. Torrey Blaylock got hit on the first play of the Ole Miss game and immediately wanted to come out. And from that point on, he was nowhere near healthy enough to really play, but OU was down to those 2 guys. We all know what happened with Jade Knott, and we all know what happened with Javonte Barnes. They had no other option. And so I painted that picture for him and asked him, how do you fix this? And Dylan just went in on and said, yeah, it's all about better management. It's about understanding who your 1s and 2s are, your starting running back, your the main guys that you're going to be going into SEC play with. Who are those guys? For OU last year, it was Xavier and Torrey. May very well be again this year in 2026. If they're your guys, I'm not going to have them do every single thing in practice, spring, summer, fall. I'm not going to have them do every single thing. I'm trying to build up a room here. So at the same time, while you're trying to build up Jonathan Hatton or Lloyd Avant to get them going, to give them more opportunities in practice to showcase what they can bring to the table, you're saving Xavier Robinson and you're saving Torrey Blaylock so that when you get into mid-October and November, you're trying to position yourself for a playoff run, your best guys are healthy and your best guys are available and capable to showcase those skills that make them so good. I mean, I think Xavier Robinson is by far the best back that we've seen at OU in the last few years. And I think he's good enough to be an SEC workhorse back. He's just not been healthy in his 2 years to really showcase it. So hopefully with Dylan McCullough's different voice, a different mindset, hopefully we get to see a lot more of that in 2026.
And as he builds up that room, the other thing I thought that was just it was subtle, but it was quiet confidence in the mic drop moment. If you go back to, Brent had talked about that every single guy, Lamar Morgan, Jason Witten, Dylan McCullough had other offers that they chose Oklahoma. They chose Oklahoma in some cases. Certainly Witten and McCullough chose Oklahoma over the NFL with offers that they had. And Dylan McCullough's just like, yeah, man, I picked my running back room. I know I like Brent Venables. I know I like this program, but I really like what's in that room, and I wanted to go there, which played a big role in it, which I think is going to be huge. And then maybe the least shocking thing of the day, Hoove, Jason Witten, the perennial All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, like we're just waiting a matter of a couple months before that gets minted, and he'll be in the Hall. He is at Oklahoma. He obviously put on a show. He's one of those guys that, not a new thought, but he's already been a high school head coach. If he wants to be a head coach in college football or the NFL, you get the vibe that he'll be there pretty quickly. He just got to pick his lane that he wants. That's Raiders legend Jason Witten, by the way. That Raiders stint never gets talked about for some reason. But no, it's a situation where you see with Seneca Driver that he immediately comes in, lands the number one tight end in the country with the Future Freaks, and you saw, as Brady mentioned earlier, Jack Van Dorselaer is immediately like, yep, Jason Witten. Yes, please. It feels like this is somebody that's going to, at the bare minimum, have that DeMarco Murray effect, but there's just something about Jason Witten that I kind of just am bought in that, and maybe it's just because no shot at anybody, but what he was inheriting and taking over, it's a pretty low bar to be a better tight end coach than you saw that Joe John landed at Texas State, which is probably his level. But you look at it and go, I don't know how this tight end room is not going to be a lot better. And that's without really seeing Jason Witten, the tight end coach, get after it.
Yeah, and it's without seeing Seneca Driver yet in college. You step in, and a month later, you step into your first college head coaching or your first college coaching job, and a month later, you've got the number one tight end in the country signing, or not signing, but pledging to committing to Oklahoma. I mean, that's getting started pretty fast. You know, it's a lot for the other guys. Think about it. It's a lot for the other position coaches to look around and say, did you see that? Oh my gosh, I got to get to work. I got to get some of those other, 5-stars in here. So it's just no pressure, guys. Like I said about the 1,200 receptions, no, same thing with the rest of the recruiting room, so to speak. The rest of the guys going out after these recruits. No pressure. Just the guy walks in basically off the street with his Pro Football Hall of Fame bust and says, "I'm Jason Witten. Let's go." Other guys are going to have to step it up. That's one of the reasons why you hire somebody like that, is because Brent Venables now has an example to say, guys, I know you're not Pro Football Hall of Famers, but we need to recruit at a higher level. We need to be more, whatever goes into recruiting, we need to be better at it. That guy right there just set the standard. So looking forward to seeing what else he can do.
I would like to go out on a limb. I think Seneca Driver is going to end with more than the 100 yards or whatever that Joe John had from guys that he recruited out of high school. So we will see there. Boys, let's split it up this way. We talked to almost all the new players. There are a couple guys, like we said, Peyton Joseph, he had class, couldn't make it, get it. But Carson, you don't have to hit everybody, but what kind of stood out to you? We divided and conquered, so not everyone talked to every single person, but I know you got in there mixing it up with Bo Bentley. How was Bo? And then just who else kind of stood out to you as guys that you got to chat with?
Yeah, Bo Bentley was very interesting to talk to, said that he's already picked up a lot from John Mateer, knowing that Bo Bentley is probably the quarterback of the future for this program. Said that he's tried to be as good of a listener as he can to both John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle, and really just built relationships with the other freshmen. I know that he really said that he's enjoyed spending time with his roommate. I forget who he said that was, but just all the other freshmen, he said that he's really prioritized building the relationships with them. No surprise, but just really, really cool to finally put a face to the name, get to meet him. That was neat. Jake Cruel, I'm not quite sure how that one's supposed to be pronounced.
Crowd.
Okay, but he was really neat to talk to. He had Ole Miss and Texas as his finalist for his recruitment. Basically said it was OU's defensive just identity that they have that is what swayed OU over those two really good programs. Loved what he saw from Brent Venables, from the current defensive ends that they had in R. Mason Thomas, Taylor Wine, guys like that. That was kind of the big selling point for Jake to come to Norman. I think obviously former 5-star guy, he's going to be a disruptor, whether that's in year 1, year 2. That was obviously one of the biggest gets of the 2026 class. And then it was cool to meet some of the guys who might not have a huge impact in year one. I thought Trace Rudd, I know kicker is going to be a backup kicker in this year. Hearing how he's already learned from Tate Sandell, of course, the Groza Award winner in 25. That was pretty cool to hear. I liked hearing from DeZephan Walker, who was in a similar situation to some of the other running backs, the tight ends, the cornerbacks who saw their position coaches leave. Basically said, yeah, really bummed to see DeMarco not be here anymore, but also really like Dylan McCullough. He's been instrumental in helping me grow. I haven't put the pads on yet, but I've already learned a lot. So he was cool to talk to and just, yeah, like I said, cool to kind of hear some of these guys' stories before we get to see them put on pads.
Brady, you had who all did you? I know that you were over there with Jonathan Hatton. Which here's my other thing that Walker and Hatton. I know on signing day that Jim Nagy had said they're SEC backs. They walk in the room just like, yeah, those guys are SEC backs. They are round and large and muscular. But who else did you link up with?
Yeah, I mean, Jack Van Dorsler, of course. I mean, had that story on Sooners on SI, like you mentioned. Jonathan Hatton as well. I also wrote a story about him on the website that anybody can go check out, mainly about the familiarity that he has with Dylan McCullough. Jonathan Hatton, just from a visible, like an eye test standpoint, he looks the part. I mean, as a highly touted running back coming out of high school, if you're an OU fan that's been around for a while, you know that running backs at OU is a very privileged position. He looks the part. And we've already seen a handful of just even under DeMarco Murray, true freshman running backs make impacts in year one. So I wouldn't be shocked if Jonathan Hatton's going to be another one in that long line of guys that can make impacts in their first years. Dakota Fields was an interesting conversation. I was the only one talking to him at the time, and I'm working on a little story with him probably for next week because his story is just kind of interesting, just because again, like Carson had mentioned, players that signed up to play for a certain position coach only to then step onto campus and play for another one. When Dakota Fields committed to OU out of the portal from the University of Oregon, he was under the impression he was going to play for Jay Valai, and now he's going to play for Lamar Morgan. He's, of course, excited about the prospect of playing for him as well, but he's mainly just excited for the prospect of playing under Brent Venables' defense, because I thought I was going to have to point this out, but he pointed it out himself that Brent likes to rotate in a lot of corners in big moments and big games. And so Dakota Fields felt like his situation in Oregon was mishandled. I dare say it sounded like the Jade Knott situation. I don't want to say that, but it was kind of the same verbiage of he tore his ACL his freshman year. It took a little bit longer for him to heal. He felt like he was played a little bit too early in spring and summer of the following year, and it kind of hampered his recovery and just didn't put him in the best position to succeed at Oregon, which is ultimately why he chose to leave the team, I believe, sometime in mid-November last year. Dan Lanning even was asked about it, and he had very little to say at the time when that happened. But Dakota Fields is excited about the prospect of potentially being a guy that could very well play. I mean, we're all excited about Cortland Guillory and Eli Bowen and even Jacoby Johnson, but past that, it's anyone's game. And why not Dakota Fields with his size and his measurables and the acumen that he brings from a recruiting standpoint? He definitely fills that mold. And then also another player that may or may not play that much, even in their first year, let alone, maybe a second year guy, but Christian Moore was just a fun player to talk to. He's just incredibly charismatic, energetic. He is, of course, as he says, the 0-star linebacker from Selma, Alabama. He had also mentioned that, well, I played edge my first 2 or 3 years in high school. If I had played linebacker, I probably would have been a more higher rated. But for a kid that comes from the state of Alabama, which at last look, guys, I believe there are only 7 or 8 players from the state of Alabama to ever play at the University of Oklahoma, and he's the 8th or the 9th guy. And now, you say that and you look at the 2027 class, now there's 3 Alabama players committed at this point to play for OU. But considering what his recruiting profile was, what his background was, he is excited about being an Oklahoma Sooner. He is very excited about playing under Brent Venables, and that energy, that I guess that charisma that he has is really infectious. And the thought that he gets to play and learn under Kip Lewis, who is, of course, very charismatic and very infectious and very energetic in his own right, it seems like a match made in heaven.
Sounds like Cole Sullivan's also stoked to play under Brent Venables. That was something that
That was
I know
my
we.
vote.
Yeah, I was about to say we'd had the story, and John, I know that you had gone back through and watched that, but when you look at getting over some of the awkwardness of, and I think it was Brady, were you talking to him? Some of the awkwardness of the, hey, when you review some of the Michigan film and go, well, that's me, I'm out there, oops. But he's a guy that when you just talk about stuff like Brent Venables clearly believes in me, and I just want to like pay that back in production. That's the kind of stuff that I think Oklahoma fans don't have to fret too much about when it comes to Brent Venables and his linebackers, but it's still nonetheless really, really engaging and the good stuff to hear.
That was going to be my vote too. Was him? Just a simple fact that they set him down in a dark room and flipped the video on, and there he is. Except he's playing for the other team, and he's watching his teammates play. Except for last year, they were playing for the other team. It's just a unique situation. I thought Brady did a good job in that story, encapsulating how weird the transfer portal has made college sports now. That you've got guys, look how many games next year Oklahoma's playing against former Sooners. Like 4 or 5 games they're going to be playing against former Sooners. So it's just weird. I'll say this, and it sounds like a cop-out, I know, because you're sitting here saying, Hoover, did you watch all 30 of those videos? Well, technically, okay, honestly, no, I did not watch all 30 videos. But if you want to watch all 30 videos, you can go to my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. Yeah, check that out on YouTube. So here's what I was going to say is, coming from a former high school football player who was an absolute dork with the media, I sucked really bad at speaking with the local press. I did it a couple of times. I was embarrassed every time because I'm terrible at it, or I was 40 years ago. These guys come in to OU, and they've done the radio interviews, they've done face-to-face interviews after games and after camps and stuff. They are so good at it. They are so polished. The freshmen come in here, and they are camera ready. They are interview ready for the media. And it has, for about the last 15 years or so, it has really impressed me how Oklahoma has done a really good job prepping these guys. They've been doing sessions, and not necessarily classes, but courses, I guess, on how to speak to the media, what not to say, how to express yourself. I'm talking about the freshmen. I'm not talking about the transfers. The transfers have been polished up somewhere else, and then they come to Oklahoma. But just the fact that these guys come in as freshmen and they are ready to go, they are polished, and they sound good, they look good, they present themselves well, they represent the program well. I've always been impressed by that. Just like, how does that dude know at 18 years old how to speak that good to the media? Because I was a joke at it. I was terrible. I was a complete idiot.
John, you say that, but let's just make a really early season prediction right now. Is Parker Livingston going to be available to us the week of the Texas game?
Yeah, of
because
course.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say yes. I think Mike Houck is very savvy. He's going to be able to coach him up and tell him what not to say, how to steer around certain roadblocks. Yeah, it's. I can't wait to talk to that guy during Texas week.
I would ask, what is Oklahoma's record at that point? Because that will determine.
2-3, probably not. Yeah,
we've gotten many of the. You'll get the captains and you'll like it, which is fine. Also, I'll just toss in Deacon Schmidt. He's excellent. I know that Oklahoma didn't sign many offensive linemen out of high school, but I know that they have big expectations for Deacon, and him and Ryder Mix seem to have a fantastic relationship. And when I was asking Ryder, like, hey, who are some of the freshmen that you're looking forward to getting out there in spring ball that are really going to impress? He had 2 names. Bo Bentley, which I think is always good to hear from your freshman quarterback who might very well end up winning that backup job, and then he had Deacon Schmidt. So we will see there. 6 guys that Oklahoma hopes will be talking to next year around this time were added over the weekend. Carson, I had to write them all down just to make sure I didn't forget anybody because they were flying left, right, and center. O-lineman Tyson Ross, Seneca driver we were talking about, DB Jalen Scott, quarterback Jamison Roberts, 2027 quarterback in the boat. Cooper Witten, I don't know if anyone had any relationships there prior, but we'll see. And then Graydon Howell, in-state athlete, does a lot of quarterbacking at the high school level, but going to play all over the place a little bit. Easy to say, but a massively successful recruiting weekend for the future Freaks. 6 public commits, and it feels like we're just waiting in the wings for a couple more to pop as well for this past weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, it's arguably the best recruiting week ever, I think you could say. Just getting I think 5 on one day, and Cooper Witten too. I mean, that's unheard of, especially when you look at how highly rated these players are. Obviously, getting a quarterback, massive. Some sites have him as a 3-star, but if you look at his stats, who he's been offered by, it's very clear that a lot of people are valuing him higher than a 3-star prospect. He looks the part, led his team to the 6A Alabama State title last year. Crazy good thrower, crazy good runner. OU's got to like what they're getting. Also getting another Alabama kid in Jalen Scott. I know that he is a consensus 4-star. A lot of people really like what they see in him. That's obviously a big addition. I think Graydon Howell, that is maybe the most intriguing pickup. Someone that hasn't been a highly rated prospect for very long, finally starting to get his flowers from the recruiting networks. But an Oklahoma kid, broken bow, I believe. And he's someone, like you said, Ryan, can do a lot of different things. Obviously done a lot of quarterbacking at broken bow, but also a runner. Sounds like he can catch the ball if need be. He can also play defensively. So, I mean, I kind of like getting that jack of all trades, getting the local commitments, obviously following Cooper Hackett, Caden Penny. Obviously, it was a big talking point that the 2026 class didn't have any Oklahoma signees. I think they've made amends for that with the 2027 class so far, getting so many good guys from this state. I think that's massive too, to just not only dominate, but dominate in your state. I think that's a pretty big deal.
Off and running, far and away the number one class, just by commits, by quality commits, all that fun stuff. Early days in the 2027 class. And yeah, once we get to the summer, we'll see who is stuck from this class. But I get it for, with how everything is right now, it's easy to be good vibes, kumbaya, all that stuff. But for a guy that stepped in, wasn't hired with this initial setup of the NFL style front office and all that stuff, it seems like it's all working seamlessly in portal, recruiting, all that stuff. And certainly we will see if that continues here, as there's no reason it shouldn't as we get into that. All right, let's step outside of the football world real quick. Batting around, women's basketball did what they needed to lock down probably a top 4 seed by taking down Florida. Got absolutely spanked again by LSU. I think that's going to drop them to a 4 line, which means they'll host the first 2 rounds. It might be a Sacramento versus Fort Worth situation, in either UConn or Texas. They're just not athletic enough. They will get to the Sweet 16 and lose to UConn or Texas, just unless Aaliyah Chavez goes bananas. I think I'm pretty settled there. Carson, SEC tournament kicks off today for the men. We won't get into it too much with OU South Carolina, because by the time you're listening to this, now you'll have time, because that game's not going to tip off till like midnight, but 8:30 is the scheduled. Bare minimum 3 games. Is that what we're thinking? That if they're not playing on Friday, because a lot of people on the bubble are losing, but Oklahoma is still needing to get up rungs, and I just simply don't think a win over South Carolina and Texas A&M by itself is going to be enough.
Yeah, I think 2 with some help might get them there. I think 3 gets them in without much drama on Selection Sunday. Beat South Carolina, don't beat A&M. I don't think they make it. Beat South Carolina and A&M. I think there's, I don't know, maybe a 40-60 chance, but they need some help from the bubble. Win those 2 games and Arkansas, I think they're in. Probably still going to Dayton, but I think they would be in the field, which the fact that we're discussing this at this point, it's remarkable considering where this program was after 10 games in SEC play.
Remarkable, and, everyone gets a thumbs up for trying hard. It's an indictment on the NCAA tournament that we're talking about expansion, and that Oklahoma shouldn't have made it last year in like a normal year, and for them to even be still alive is insane, but that's neither here nor there.
Last team in last year, right? Last team in last year would certainly be the last team in this year if they were to get in.
Yeah, so
they were the first team out for 2 years before that, right? So that's not a boundary you want to be dancing on if you're a basketball program like Oklahoma. Come on.
But hey, in defense of Porter Moser, though, like let me throw some egg on my face. I wrote this, published it on January 21st. The title, It's Time for Oklahoma Basketball to Chart a New Path. You can find that on Sooners on SI. Path. What word has Porter Moser been using the last 2 weeks? And to his credit, they have followed that path. So, hey, if they keep winning, just blame me.
If talking about paths, what would you need to see from now until whenever Oklahoma is officially done playing basketball to be cool with the decision that brings Porter Moser back? Because for me, anything short of like literally an Elite Eight run, I'm just over it. We've seen the Porter Moser experience. I don't think throwing more NIL at a guy that can't coach in the last 2 minutes is going to do anything as far as getting Oklahoma off of this. They're just going to be a bubble team. And Porter Moser has shown us, Carson, throughout his career, he has 2 runs to the tournament, and every other year he's ever coached, most of those have ended in losing seasons and not even getting to 500 in conference play.
Yeah, I think it would still take a lot for me, even though I think he does deserve his flowers for this stretch. 6 out of the last 8 games they've won, both losses coming to teams that should be tournament locks at this point. There's no denying that it's been an impressive stretch, but it also doesn't erase those 9 games in a row they lost, 2 of those coming against not very good South Carolina and Mississippi State teams. I think if they made a run in the SEC, maybe getting to the finals, say they do what they need to do, win those 3 games, then they win a couple, maybe make it to the Sweet 16. I think you could convince me that maybe he should get another year, avoid the buyout. Then it's got to be make or break. It's one of those things that if OU does decide to pull the trigger, get rid of Porter Moser, they have to have a replacement in mind. They have to get someone that's savvy with NIL, the portal, this new age of college basketball. Because, I mean, looking at Porter Moser's days at Loyola Chicago, there's no doubt that he can lead a basketball team. Maybe he's just not up to speed with how much this game has changed, how much the style of play has changed, the portal. So many different aspects have changed. I mean, you're seeing it from Scott Drew at Baylor. Those teams aren't what they used to be pre-NIL, pre-portal. It's a lot of coaches that aren't having the same success. We've seen that in football with Mike Gundy, Dabo Swinney, not doing what they did pre-monumental changes in the sport. So really, if they decide to do it, what I'm trying to say is they just got to make sure they get the right guy, somebody that has some sort of, I think it's important they get someone with a connection to the school, a love for the school, whether that's, I don't know, say a Hollis Price, somebody like that. Just throwing names out there, but getting someone that is both has a desire to stay for at least a good several years and is up to speed. I think that's the biggest thing if they do decide to get rid of Porter Moser.
The tricky part, Ryan, with this is just going to be if, let's say that they do go on that Elite Eight run, or even better, they just go on an unprecedented run. You have to also have the knowledge that he's going to be able to bring in talent. I mean, it's always like, oh, it's like everybody wants a 5, everybody wants a big. If you could go on a run like that and then guarantee that you can get that 5 or you can bring in like legitimate talent, because that's been the tricky part. I mean, what we don't know for sure is, has Porter Moser lost the room in terms of the money, the influencers, the money makers with this program, particularly with OU basketball? If so, then it's a moot point. But if he hasn't, if there's still people that believe, you need to be able to guarantee that you can bring in even more talent so you can avoid a 9-game losing streak in conference.
And one of the other big question marks is just the Roger Denny of it all, right? We don't know what Roger Denny's view on, do I need to bring in my own guy? Do I believe in Porter Moser? He just has not had the resource. He was an associate AD. He was on some search committee, search firm stuff for other coaching searches, but we've never seen him be the guy that makes the call and don't really have a track record. Like for Joe C., we knew for OU basketball, as long as no one's getting arrested, he was kind of cool with mediocrity or whatever. Please just make a tournament run occasionally. Joe was just like, just please don't bother me with the basketball, because there was no NIL resources, and he just went out to get the oldest, steadiest hand in Lon Kruger he could get, just to do that for a decade and call it. I know that Avery would push back on that, but I mean, it was awesome. It was incredible for one of the years, and then it was just the other time. That's the Joe C. method of like, don't bother me with your basketball. How motivated is Roger Denny coming from a place like Illinois? His first lock into collegiate athletics is caring a lot about basketball. What did he grow up? A North Carolina fan, caring a lot about basketball. Maybe he has a very different viewpoint on what Oklahoma basketball needs to be, and if he does, then Porter Moser shouldn't stay very long in that office, because you're just not going to get there with Porter.
Ryan, you hit it right on the head. Here's a guy who came up in college basketball as an elite member of college basketball, right? So it means something different to him than it meant to Joe Castiglione. Now, if you look at OU's NIL spending, we're told, I saw a graphic this week, OU's 15th out of 16 teams in the SEC and with their commitment to NIL. Roger Denny hasn't been frustrated for the last 4 years by Porter Moser's kind of underachieving teams, right? He comes into this thing with a fresh perspective. This year, he's probably looking at it going, okay, trying to catch up, trying to do that whole thing. What did they do last year? How does this compare to the year before? What about his best year? Which one of these years is his best year? He's all new to this from an Oklahoma basketball perspective. He should know, if he's a college basketball fan, that OU is a good program, a great program, is that program that we keep talking about, number one in the country, back and forth, number one and number two in the country among basketball teams that don't have a national championship. So he's probably got some perspective on what OU basketball should be, or what maybe the fans think it should be. But at this point, he's learning on the fly. You mentioned the deep pocket boosters, the big money donors. What do they think? He wants to know right now, people who are going to give to the program, who are going to improve that 15 out of 16 NIL spending, the people who are responsible for kind of pulling this program up from where it is right now. He's got to take their perspective into consideration probably as much as anything. So you're right, man. It's going to be interesting how he views this whole thing.
It's to me like kind of the biggest question mark of the next year for Oklahoma athletics. I'm just fascinated to see what the because we asked him and he wasn't going to be like, yes, he's coming back, or no, he's leaving on his introductory press conference day. I get that, but just the we know his method for it and checking in, but this is the only one that you're going to have to probably make a decision before you have that opportunity. And I'm just curious to see what that looks like. Good to see Raj, by the way. He was bounced around in the background at Media Day. Got to talk to him for a little bit. Sounds like he's settled in pretty nice. It's been a whirlwind, 45 days or whatever it's been since he's been announced. So got that going. We got SEC play kicking off on Imhoff, basically, this weekend. Skip's crew hosting Texas A&M. Patty's crew hosting Auburn. Then they're getting the heck out of town for tournament weekend, which is great for all of us personally. You look at it today at 3:00, definitely will be done by the time or in the closing stages by the time this is out. UT Arlington, the last midweek for the Sooners on the baseball side of things. Then have an A&M. And guys, big weekend to kind of open this thing, because I know the midweeks are the midweeks, Carson, Brady, and Carson will go here first, but you look at some of the LSU struggles, some of the Florida struggles. In a weird way, maybe this is too premature and an overreaction for the non-conference, but the SEC kind of feels a little wide open on the baseball side, or more wide open than maybe you thought when you look in the preseason. Oklahoma's ranked like at the bottom of the top 25 and is way, way down in the SEC rankings.
Yeah, no, I think you're pretty correct in that assessment. It's ironic. Aside from Mizzou, the three former Big 12 schools have looked really good so far, with OU, A&M, and Texas. I believe they have a combined 3 losses at this point. That's pretty dang good. I know Texas number 2 in the nation. Mississippi State, of course, a really good team. So, I mean, at the top, it still looks really strong. Auburn looks like a pretty dang good team this year, but it is a big opportunity. For OU, I think winning this series, I mean, A&M's a good team, definitely improved a lot from what was a disappointing first year under Michael Early for them last year. If they could find a way to win 2 games of the series at minimum, that would be a really good just kind of litmus test of where this team is at, because if we're being realistic, LSU's going to get better. Florida's going to get better. Some of these teams that we've seen struggle, they're going to get better. You see that with a lot of these top tier programs in college baseball, just kind of, especially when you're restarting from scratch with the portal, losing guys to the MLB draft. In this era, it's going to take time for at least a lot of these major teams to kind of find their identity. You're seeing that with LSU dropping games to Northeastern and McNeese State, Florida losing a series to High Point. I think it's impressive that both OU and A&M, the 2 teams playing in this series this weekend, they haven't had those struggles against inferior competition. Gonzaga took 1 game from OU, but it's 1 game. It's Sunday, probably your 3rd best pitcher in the rotation there. And Gonzaga has been a pretty good mid-major over the years. You don't look back at that like, oh, that's alarming. I think coming into this game, assuming they take care of business against UT Arlington with only 2 losses, one of those coming against Arizona State, that's pretty good. And I think winning a series would be massive just to get things going for SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing for OU this year from a baseball standpoint is just win as many games as you can. Like, let alone the series are going to be tough. I mean, if you just peruse the schedule, it is hard. So it is just all about raw wins. Can you accumulate enough wins? And to your point, Carson, I mean, with Florida, LSU struggling in the non-conference, I mean, how many times have we seen the inverse of that, even under Skip Johnson, where they have a great non-conference run, only to then get a reality check in conference play? I mean, whether it's the Big 12 or the SEC, I mean, you're playing tough, great baseball programs week in and week out. And it's just it's hard. Like, this schedule is going to be hard for this team. But I think mainly for OU's chances, it's can they couple overall really good pitching with a good day at the plate? Because when we've seen this team just string together hits, doubles, triples, home runs, even put a lot of points on the board. When you face OU on a day like that, they're going to be tough to beat, especially if you're going up against Cameron Johnson on Friday, LJ Mercurius, who I think is even probably the best pitcher on the team. That guy is just incredible with his control, his speed. He's got the entire package, in my opinion. If you compare that with OU having a great day from a Jackson Willits, a Drew Dickerson, Deaton LaChance, like these guys that have just consistently made contact with the ball with the bat. If you can do that, like, OU is going to find a lot of success even with this tough schedule. But again, it's just going to come down to, yes, try to win the series that you're playing in Norman. When you're going on the road, there's no shame in winning one game in Tuscaloosa. There's no shame in winning one game at Vanderbilt. This is going to be tough.
Something we saw them navigate pretty well last year, and I'm just excited to see against the SEC pitching. It's something Skip had talked about. They needed a little bit more power. I'm happy to see, or excited to see, if that's going to continue to show up. Someone that is lacking no power, the other side of Imhoff, Oklahoma softball on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. They became officially the fastest D1 program to 100 homers. It took them 25 games to get to 100. Previous record was 36 games by this same Oklahoma program in 2021. That team, I keep reminding people, they needed to play the maximum number of games in Oklahoma City to set the home run record, or that certainly helped them. I do not think that this Oklahoma team is going to have to worry about that a great deal. Biggest thing that came out of Sunday is you got good performances in the circle from Sid Berzon. I thought Miley Wichenio looked good as well, continued to look good. And then Patty Gasso was fired up about, it may seem inconsequential, Kirsten Deal comes in with one out in the fifth and a run rule, immediately gets a double play, but Patty just spoke about, like, that's the Kirsten Deal I know, seeing her confidence, things like that. So I'm really curious to see if that means that Kirsten Deal gets a chance to maybe build on that against Tulsa tonight as the Golden Hurricane walk into Love's Field. I don't know if this will be like an Alyssa Parker situation, give the freshman one more chance to get out there before you set up some version of what should be Lowry Wichenio set on Friday, Saturday against Auburn. An Auburn team that just not great in the circle. We'll see what they're able to do. Coming in with a 4, I think it's a 3.96 team ERA. That's not exactly what you want when you're talking about this Oklahoma team that can absolutely mash, especially if it's blowing out on Sunday. So we'll see there. But big test. It's the first time since Mary Nutter weekend that Oklahoma's facing real pitching staffs. Sorry to Louisiana, who I was just not super impressed with. Although Louisiana held them to 2 runs, but a lot of wasted outs on Sunday morning. So we will see as far as that goes. A weird quirk of things too. OU, I think A&M and Mississippi State, the 3 teams this past weekend that in the SEC softball-wise, you get one bye week. And their bye week was the first week of SEC play. So it was kind of a little bit of FOMO as you're looking around the country and seeing Tennessee and LSU get after it, Texas and South Carolina. It was Auburn and Kentucky. Kentucky won the first game on Friday, then Auburn swept the Saturday doubleheader. I was just like, man, it'd be cool to be like watching SEC games right now instead of Abilene Christian. But, you know, it be what it be as Oklahoma continues to rack it up. Kendall Wells leads the country with 19 homers. Freshman record is 30. So, yeah, she just has to hit 11. She's going to, like, miss-hit 3 in SEC play, much less 11 between that, regionals, and all that. So, it'll be a fun weekend.
Not to interrupt, but the thing about her is the damn distance on these shots that she's hitting. The
Yeah,
ones that are leaving the facility, they're like leaving the city of Norman. Holy hell, girl.
I don't often do this publicly, at least. I had someone that was spamming through any tweet about OU home runs with, like, the distances are 200 and 220 in the corners. This is a Little League park. And I was just like, Kendall Wells launched one 304. Also, the Trackman data is out there. OU tweets it every single time. these home runs are like 280 feet bombs, and they're consistent. I was like, take that to any softball park in the country, and you're going to be going yard at 280. But, not all people were blessed with common sense when they came out of the womb. And, it be what it be. Oklahoma softball fans specifically, no strangers to people like, well, because they're in Oklahoma City, that's the only reason that the ball flies 300 feet. I'm like, no, I think they would have hit that anywhere. But we shall see. I'm trying to think, anything else going on in the world of OU that we missed? Because I know it's been action-packed with the pre-spring media day and all that fun stuff. But
women's gym, they're going to be in Tulsa for NCAAs, right? Or no, conference, SEC. And they're regular season champs as usual. I mean,
undefeated regular season champs.
Yeah, undefeated, ranked number 1 all year. So no surprise and no news or anything. But hey, hats off once again.
Yeah, SEC playing.
KJ has just built a unit that is almost self-sustaining now.
Yeah, it's insane. Tennis.
And Mark Williams got the number 1 men's team. So don't forget those.
Tennis just started at SEC play. They're both doing pretty well. And then Mark Williams, you can count the combined rankings of Oklahoma's gymnastics teams on 2 fingers, excuse me. That is just 1 and 1 for them. So, all right, next week it'll be spring break in Norman, not spring break for us. We'll dive a lot more into some of the runoff stuff that we missed from Media Day as we're still kind of digesting all of it. We'll start to kick up our spring preview as well as practice will kick off the last week of March. Oklahoma's waiting until everybody gets back from spring break to truly get that going. But Brady, thank you, my friend, for stepping in for Mr. Aber. Thank you to Carson and Hoover as always. Sorry about no softball show this week. Monday we were kind of busy. We were tied down in Norman and figured let's just get through SEC play and we'll be able to stop back in and have that every single Monday as long as they don't give us 40 athletes available. Pro Day on Thursday. That's the other thing. Jaden Ott back in Norman at Everest Indoor for Pro Day. We'll have our big Pro Day recap tomorrow. Big days I mentioned see Kendall Daniels, Dominic Williams, if they're feeling better to be able to do some stuff that they weren't able to do at the Combine. But we'll be able to recap Pro Day and all that fun stuff next week. But that'll do it here on the Sooners on SI podcast. The website, OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com. It's always free. You never have to pay $1 to come and read everything Oklahoma. We've got it all for you. Podcast, be back next week. Softball podcast, same feed. And if you're on the YouTube, thank you. If you want to go to YouTube, as we said, just type in John Hoover Media, hit latest, and all the football you could ever desire is there, as well as Porter Moser, pre-SEC tournament stuff. All that fun stuff is the place to be. If you're like, Ryan, that's a lot, just follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Oklahoma Sooners on SI. We'll get it all to you there as well. Big thank you, as always, for tuning in. But until next week, we'll see you guys.